Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Auburn Undercover Roundtable. I'm your host, Brandon Marcello, along with Phillip Marshall and Keith Niebuhr. Big week, of course, for Auburn football. They host LSU Saturday, as most of you know. Also a big recruiting weekend. We'll talk about that with Keith here in a little bit, but we'll jump right into it with LSU. Auburn seems to have some confidence in its running game again. Of course, you know, they went against an FCS team in Alabama State, but what do you make of just Auburn's offense going into this game? That seems to be the biggest question mark.
I just don't think I think that they're going to have to throw the ball. They're not going to be able just to line up and run it all day, and they should be able to. But there's just not much you can take out of playing Alabama State. That's such a mismatch, and so, yeah, I think it's, in order to throw it, they're going to have to be able to run it some. So, and I'll be surprised if they can't, as we've discussed before. Gus Malzahn's teams have always figured out how to run it, and I figured they'll be able to run it. I don't think they're going to run for 300 yards, but I think they'll be able to run the ball.
I agree with Phillip and Brandon. I'm guessing you're going to say the same thing. We don't know. The jury's still out, but the jury's still out on LSU. You don't know. You have such a small sample size this time of year, and it's always so funny that people have made these snap judgments on how the season's going to turn out. I mean, after the LSU loss last year, I don't think many of us thought Auburn would be in the national title hunt come December. So you really don't know. But in terms of the offense, just kind of like what we always thought, lean on the pass early in the season as the offensive line gets to gel a little bit and the running backs kind of get their feet wet. There's a lot of promise there. I don't think there's any question about that. I don't know if Auburn's going to need to put up 500 yards offense. I mean, this is going to be a battle. Two teams that should be okay in the trenches. LSU, like, Phillip always says about Auburn, they feel like they're coming in to win. I mean, it's LSU, and that itself presents a challenge, just the name on the jersey and the logo on the helmet. But I think Auburn's better in the trenches. I think they will ultimately be able to run the ball, maybe in the second half. It's going to be a battle. Eli Stove and Will Hastings, who knows how effective they're going to be, but just having them, I think, helps. And, look, Jarrett Stidham has been in these situations before. He's now won a lot of big games in just 15 games at Auburn or 16 games at Auburn. So he's been there. He knows what to do. But it's still going to be a fight, no doubt about it.
The thing is, I think two things in Auburn's favor, or probably more than two, but one, the home team is 16-2 in this series the last 18 years. And the two are the two worst Auburn teams in that time span, 2012 and 2008. And Auburn almost won both of those games. The other thing is Joe Burrow, one, has not been overly efficient so far. And two has not faced a defensive front like Auburn's. And three, this is his first time to start or really play significant snaps in a hostile atmosphere like he's going to face Saturday. So that'll be interesting to see how he responds.
Yeah, I saw a stat where times he was blitzed, his completion percentage is only about 40%. And his completion percentage anyway is pretty low at what is it, 47%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not great. And I think I was talking to someone yesterday about it, and they countered argued with, well, he's completing 62% of his passes when he's not pressured. It's like, well, he should. 62% is actually a average completion percentage overall. So, anyway.
And he's going to be pressured.
Oh, well, yes, he is. Even when they're not blitzing.
Well, and I guess the question is, Brandon, I'm going to follow on what you just said. The question is if Auburn can get forward to him. Auburn's secondary, still green, let's be honest. And, LSU's going to have some big play type receivers, big physical receivers like they always have. Probably not as talented as what we're used to seeing, but still talented nonetheless. And, if Auburn can get pressure with, 3-4 guys, it's going to make it easier for, the back part of the defense. So we'll see. I mean, that efficiency level, the completion percentage for Burrow has got to be a major concern. But they're going to do what they always do. They're going to throw those quick slants. That's their big three. And then they're going to throw deep a few times. And then on third and long, they somehow one of their big, they find guys open. But we'll see. I mean, every week that he's there, you have to figure he's going to develop a little bit more cohesion with his receivers. Remember, he didn't get there that long ago. So again, it's going to be a test, but the inconsistency with the completion percentage is got to be a major concern if you're LSU.
Well,
yeah, I think that. Go ahead, Philip.
I think it's paramount for both teams that that the run be enough of a threat that it keeps the defensive fronts from just pinning their ears back and going after the quarterback. If either one is able to do that without being concerned about the run, then it's going to be a really tough day for somebody.
Yeah, I thought, Keith, you brought up a good point there. Listen, you get to Joe Burrow, that's great, but Auburn's got to stop them on 3rd and long, and Auburn's had some issues on 3rd and long, even against Washington a few times in some crucial points of the game. Now, the overall 3rd down, conversion rate was really good for Auburn's defense, but there were some 3rd and longs in that game against Washington that they were able to convert that really, frustrated the defense and allowed Washington to get in the red zone and or score later on. So that's something to watch in this game. But Burrow, as we mentioned, getting to him is really crucial. But this is a guy, he can't really move in the pocket either. This isn't a guy I think that's going to create on his own. Say it's 2nd and 6, a play breaks down, he's able to roll out while he's rolling out, and he's able to run upfield and get that 6 yards. I think he's a little bit different from the previous 2 quarterbacks Auburn's faced.
Well, I just don't think he's, and look, I may be completely surprised, but I will be very surprised if he's in the same league with one they played in the first game. With Jake Browning. So I think that, like I said, I think that it's paramount for both teams to be able to run the ball, but particularly for LSU, because I do think that the difference in the game to me, I think LSU's defense is really good. The difference in the game is how is LSU's defense compared to Auburn's offense and vice versa. And I think Auburn's offense has more of an advantage against LSU's defense than LSU's offense does against Auburn's defense.
I'll say this for LSU's offense. They don't put the ball on the ground. They don't turn it over. So that's interesting, too. But, Auburn has won with great defenses without really causing a ton of turnovers anyway. So that's not really a huge issue. But, I expect LSU, knowing what they're facing in the Auburn front, to try to match protect, throw deep a few times, actually probably a good bit of times, and it'll be a little feast or famine. That may create some angst for some people, but it also may create some opportunity for Auburn secondary. But that's just a guess based on what I think LSU's capable of doing, which probably isn't much against the front.
Yeah, I talked to a couple of LSU guys last night, and they were just dogging their own offensive line about just how bad it's been and all that. And I said, well, I mean, Auburn's in a somewhat similar situation with its own offensive line. They still don't quite know what they have as far as run protection against SEC type quality opponents. They've only faced one so far, but it's going to be interesting to watch Auburn's defensive line against that LSU offensive line, because they've been dealing with injuries, suspensions, and they haven't quite gelled at all this season. Even against Miami, they had some issues. But I wanted to change the subject a little bit, and we'll talk about the offensive line as well with this. But with their running back, Nick Brossette, he's averaging 130-plus yards a game, but a couple of those that average is kind of buoyed by a couple of huge runs. He's had a 92-yard run, I believe, and a big run against Miami as well. But Kevin Steele said he's very impressed with him. He watched him when he was on the scout team at LSU when Steele was the defensive coordinator there a few years ago. LSU seems to have found their running back when everybody kind of thought that would be a weakness. But just how good is LSU's running game, do you guys think?
Well, I think that he might be good. I don't think he's as good as the 2 that came before him.
There's no doubt about that.
So, and if you're not getting any place to run, that's an issue. It's all, who knows? But, Miami played really bad in that game, and LSU deserves at least some of the credit for making them play bad.
Certainly.
I don't know if Miami's any good or not. And, it's just hard for me to see LSU getting much done on the ground against Auburn's front seven. if they can, then I'll be surprised that it'll be a heck of a game.
Yeah,
it's just hard for me to see that.
Yeah, I agree, but I wouldn't be. I mean, look, LSU's a funny team to figure, man. I mean, every once in a while they sneak up and beat somebody that they maybe shouldn't, like Auburn last year. They thrive on momentum. They thrive on a big play here or there on both sides of the ball. They're just a kind of a funny team. There's often not a lot of rhyme or reason to what they do. You can't figure them out from one week to the next, and that's, to me, has kind of been the story for a few years now. I mean, but they've got talent. Running the ball, yeah, you're right. I don't see Brissett as being that guy like they've had, but he's capable. I don't think there's any question about that. And again, if they play turnover-free ball, that's one key to keeping them in the game. It's just, when you look at all the ways you say, okay, how could Auburn win? How could LSU win? It just seems like it's going to take a lot more to fall for LSU. You know what I mean? It's just like man for man, it doesn't seem like a great matchup for them. A guy that's not mobile at quarterback going up against this defensive line, running back that, he's good, but people need to see more before they really anoint him as being, an upper echelon SEC back. But again, they do have good receivers. I don't know. It's a funny team to figure. It really is. And I just don't know how they're going to consistently run the ball against Auburn. I just don't see it. And in fact, if they fall behind, they're not going to run the ball at all, probably.
Right. And Joe Burrow mentioned this, I don't know, sometime earlier this week. He said that they're going to have to throw the ball very well to beat Auburn. And maybe that's just him talking because he's a quarterback. And same guy, he also said he doesn't slide. I would slide against Auburn.
I would recommend sliding. Yes, I would too.
Well, they probably, Brandon, if I could interrupt, they probably will throw a lot like he says, but, I guess maybe the difference is, can Brissett break off long runs? Because you can complete a lot of passes. You can nickel and dime your way up the field all you want.
Right.
If they don't have the big play capability that they've had in the past few years, that's going to make it even harder. So I don't know. It just doesn't seem like the stars are aligning for LSU. But when that happens, that's sometimes when that program pulls a rabbit out of its hat.
Yeah, Joe Burrow's averaging, I think, 6 yards per pass attempt. So you're exactly right there.
They pull the rabbit out of the hat more often than not is at Tiger Stadium.
Yeah.
Right.
I just, and I'm not predicting this, but this has the same kind of feel as it had in 2014. And Auburn won 41-7.
Yeah, that 2014 game, if everybody doesn't remember listening to this, Brandon Harris, I think, was anointed the starter, his first start, and looked absolutely lost against that Auburn defense.
Now, I would think that Joe Burrow is more mature than he was, but but at the same time, I mean,
Auburn's got a better defense this go around too.
A better defense,
offense, maybe.
A better defense. And Jordan-Hare Stadium for a big game like that is a tough place to be, especially if you haven't experienced really it or anything like it. I mean, there's other places in the SEC obviously that are the same, but if you haven't experienced it before, could be pretty tough.
Well, I guess if you're LSU, maybe a little optimism in the sense that, again, Burrow each week probably gets a little more comfortable with his line, with his coaches, with the receivers. But also, maybe those first 2 weeks they have discovered what works more and what doesn't work more. Maybe that has something to do with the completion percentage as well. They're still trying to figure out a little bit about each other, the team, him, the receivers, all that stuff. So who knows? I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's a good matchup, like we've all pretty much agreed.
But, Auburn goes out there and turns it over a couple of times.
Yep.
So to me, that's the key for Auburn. I think when you're the better team and you're playing at home, if you don't turn it over, you should win. If you turn it over, then all bets are off. Who knows what's going to happen?
We've seen it so many times, and if you want to see it against a lesser opponent, I always look back to that Mercer game last year. Auburn turned the ball over 4 or 5 times. 5 times?
5 times, yeah.
And it was a 7-point game in the fourth quarter.
Good thing it was a lot lesser opponent.
Yeah, exactly.
If it had been just a little bit lesser opponent, they wouldn't have won.
Right. So can't do that against LSU. Can't turn the ball over even 3 times, I would think. And especially, we always bring up the red zone issues for Auburn. And last week, Jartavius Whitlow, who is a guy who's going to carry the ball, you would think, quite a bit in this game, fumbled the ball as Auburn was crossing into the red zone against Alabama State. It was a tough way to lose the ball, the way he got hit by a safety. You kind of get hitting him right where the ball was, but still can't afford that. Can't drive down the field and get in the red zone, turn the ball over, and have issues.
Well, I can't believe you will. He'd have to do push-ups.
That's right. 50 push-ups for one turnover.
Seems kind of harsh, doesn't it?
It does. But then again, he's very much, especially after a game, after playing.
I was going to say, his 50 push-ups for him and one of us be a lot different.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Mama's got him in check, though.
Yeah, but obviously not turning the ball over is crucial. Whether it's fumbles or interceptions. And, really, I mean, Auburn had the 4 turnovers, I guess, against Alabama State. The only one that really I thought meant anything, was that one, cause that was the first quarter. The others were by young guys and the game was over. And, but he can't do that. And if he does it again, he'll pay the price by not playing. I don't have any question about that. He needs to hang on the ball because there are other options back there.
Yeah. Gus Malzahn's big about that. He's always about, hey, listen, I'm gonna, you're probably gonna be riding the bench if you fumble, but also shows, I think, how much confidence and how much of a learning curve Whitlow still has in trying to handle things. Just holding on to the ball, pass protection, finding the right holes, making the right cuts. I mean, Gus Malzahn keeps saying it. I mean, he even said it this past week when we're all like, hey, Whitlow got, 3 times the production of Cam Martin, 2 times the carries, in this game. And Gus Malzahn's answer is, well, he's a freshman. We wanted to get more freshman playing time. And I think they're preparing Whitlow for a bigger role, obviously, this season. But we all have to remember, this is his first season playing college football, too.
Exactly. And you, like I said, you just can't turn it over in a game like this. You just can't. And that's the quickest way to get beat. If you turn it over 3 times, you better hope your defense does the same, gets the same in return.
Whitlow's got an odd running style. I was wondering what you guys made of that. A lot of stutter steps, a lot of, it's almost like he's skipping out there, hopping around. What do you guys make of that?
I like it. I like it.
His high school coach calls it unorthodox.
Yeah. There was one run, I think, in the second half when he was just toying with Alabama State when he did it, and he picked up big yardage on it, on what, if you was facing an SEC defense doing it, it would have been like a 2-yard gain instead of gain like 10 yards. But, Philip, I'm interested, you talked to Whitlow's family and everything this week, for a story. I'm just interested, what did you learn on your trip to his hometown about, one, the type of athlete he is, but also the type of person he is, and maybe what they believe we will see from him in his career at Auburn?
The biggest things that stood out to me about what kind of person he is were his willingness to work and his desire to do the right things and do what he's told. And he's obviously got a very close family and extremely supportive family, even when they make him do push-ups. And that, as far as an athlete, and I probably should have known this, he was an all-state basketball player and led his team to a state championship. He's got 9 state track championships and led his team. Actually won the state track championship by himself. Played all kind of positions. Was the quarterback his last 2 years, but also played other positions. And one thing in the story, to anybody hadn't seen it, it's on the website today, is that he said he came to Coach Lucas came to Lafayette when the summer before Whitlow's sophomore year.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he had seen him on tape. He watched a bunch of huddle tapes of guys before he got there. And so he knew he was a good athlete. And he said in a preseason game, he was playing wide receiver then. And they just threw him a quick pass. And he said the cornerback and the safety and the outside linebacker hit him in unison. And he just kind of stepped back and gathered himself and took it for a touchdown. And he said, I said then, we got somebody special here. And he thinks he's got a chance to do big things, obviously, and as do his parents. I think that But the biggest thing is how hard he works that I got out of it and how bad he wants to do things the right way.
I think it's interesting. He's, I remember visiting a year ago, I heard the same things. The hard worker part of it, obviously you got to have that, but he's also extremely confident. Talking to him a year ago, he said, I'm going to start as a freshman. I'm going to do it. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to get on the field as a freshman. Well, that didn't happen, but then you go a year forward and you think, okay, maybe he's been humbled a little bit. Maybe even the, media relations staff has gotten to him and trained him a little bit. Like, hey, let's not make, bold predictions on all this. But after the Washington game, man, really confident guy. He's called himself Earthquake, and he gave Cam Martin a nickname and all this stuff. This is a guy that I think you need on an offense. He's not confident where he's trashing an opponent or belittling someone. He's talking himself up and what he believes in himself and his teammates. I think that's huge, and especially for a guy that, as we said, is only a redshirt freshman.
One thing his coach said that was interesting. I was really impressed with his coach and how much he cares about those kids, and of course a lot of the kids at a small town school like that, they don't have much, and he said. The one thing I told Boobie before he went to Auburn was, he said, remember, your name's not just yours. He said it belongs to your family. It belongs to us. It belongs to all the people that care about you, and you remember that. And I thought that was pretty good.
That's very good. And that coach, he's not your typical small town coach either.
No,
I mean, he's got quite the extensive background in coaching.
Yeah, and played on the national championship team at Troy.
Right. Very, very impressive up there. I was like you, Philip, and I went up there. I was like, I'd expect a small town vibe. And so like, no, I've done this and that. Oh, by the way, I won a national championship at Troy, and his family's just real close knit. He was talking about his brother and, does his dad still, involved with the barber shop?
He's a barber, an associate minister, and he and his wife own a gym.
Isn't that crazy?
Which is actually where we talked yesterday, was in their gym, which is right in the middle. I guess you'd call it downtown.
Well, I got to ask Philip, how much did you bench press when you were in there? I think that's what everybody wants to know right now.
Not
Surprise, Boobie's mom didn't make you get down on the floor and do push-ups before the interview.
That would have been a disaster. I don't know if I can do one. But,
yeah, but everybody should go read that. Great stuff, and just a great family and great support system. You can see why Boobie is the way he is as a person. Keith, I want to transition real quick here to recruiting. It's a big weekend recruiting-wise with this LSU game.
Yeah.
As it should be. When these big SEC games happen, Auburn wants to bring the best of the best in. What can you tell us about this weekend and what to expect from Auburn on the recruiting trail?
Well, in the old days, you wouldn't have too many official visitors during big weekends like this because the coaches don't have a ton of time with these guys. They've got the game, they got so many responsibilities. But the way the recruiting cycle is now, with guys committing early, and now you have this early signing period, it's imperative that you do host people during the season. And Auburn's going to have 4 or 5 official visitors. Really, the 2 guys, well, I'll say 3 guys of note: running back Kenny McIntosh out of Fort Lauderdale. Miami leads, but many people wonder why he hasn't committed yet. He's down there. He's supposedly a strong Canes lean. Well, why hasn't he done it yet? So Auburn thinking they're in it, along with Oklahoma. Oklahoma probably running number 2 right now. Then another big one, Derek Hall, a 4-star Buck linebacker. That's the guy that gets after the quarterback. You got to have those guys. And Auburn leads. He just visited FSU officially 2 weeks ago. Excellent visit, but he came out of that visit with Auburn still in front, and our sources tell us in Tallahassee that FSU thinks that Auburn's the team to beat here. It wouldn't be a shock if this goes well this weekend, that he commits sometime in the near future. Mississippi State, the other team to watch. And then on the offensive line, you have a guy named Will Putnam out of Plant High School in Tampa, Florida. I believe a former Auburn signee, Derek Winter, a receiver, was from that school. It's the home school of Wade Boggs, of Mike Williams, the NFL receiver, Aaron Murray. Just an outstanding athletic school. Preston Tucker plays in the major leagues. Will Putnam's really the next great athlete out of that school, state championship wrestler, and you saw how that's worked out with Nick Coe at Auburn, and also a top 100 recruit as an offensive guard. It's Auburn and FSU. It's a real battle there. Auburn's really selling the academic side of things and the culture fit. They think he's a quiet kid with Midwestern roots that they think kind of fits into that kind of workmanlike mentality that it seems so many Auburn kids recruits have. And that's not to say they don't have them at other schools. I don't want to denigrate any other programs. That's kind of what Auburn sells and what they believe in. He's very close with a few of the Auburn commits, including tight end Luke Deal, and they speak a lot. And Auburn's got a real shot here. And a few months ago, that wasn't the case. I don't think people thought Auburn had much of a chance, that he was all FSU. And he hasn't committed to FSU. He's an early enrollee. Auburn's trending up a little bit. If they do well this weekend with him, some good things could happen. He told me just last night that he said, hey, I put things off because I wanted to see how these teams started the season. Well, we've seen how we've seen how FSU started, and we've seen how Auburn started. Now, as Phillip and Brandon know, that can change, in a blink of an eye in the other direction. So, take it for what it's worth. But that's what he told me. And one other unofficial visitor of note is five-star in-state center Clay Webb. For months and months and months, people have thought he's all Bama. In recent months, though, it sounds like Georgia is trending some, and Auburn feels like it's much more in it than people have ever given them credit for based on our sourcing. He's visiting with his mom this weekend. Again, just an unofficial visit, but he's a quiet kid. You guys probably won't believe this. At some camps, people have seen him off to the side by himself, sitting in a corner, reading books. Okay. You don't see that every day, believe me, not anymore, not at a camp. Okay. I'm not saying these guys aren't academic guys, but you're there for football, but a very studious guy, very humble, down to earth and to himself kind of guy. Again, somebody that Auburn thinks fits in with what they do. He's very good friends with KJ Britt, the linebacker at Auburn. They were former teammates. This kid was offered by Auburn going into his 9th grade season. They've been recruiting him ever since. The guy that offered him way back when, JB Grimes. So Auburn's in it. It's still a little bit of an uphill battle, perhaps. We think. He doesn't say much. This is all based on sourcing. But, they're in it. And the fact he's going to be there this weekend with guys like Bo Nix really spending time with him, from what I'm told, could have a good impact on him. A lot of work to be done, but those are 4 guys that the fans really want to pay attention to.
Let me ask you a question, Keith.
Yeah.
You being the guru of all things recruiting.
Yeah.
How much difference do you think it makes? I mean, obviously players want to go someplace where they got a chance to win.
Yeah.
But just the outcome of a game, they're visiting, the team they're visiting loses the game. How much impact do you think that has?
I think it's more of an affirmation. Like, I know I want to go to Texas. I go there. They beat A&M the weekend I'm there, and everything's fantastic, and I'm overcome with the emotions. And that just tells me, this is where I wanted to be. But in terms of really changing someone's mind, I don't know. I mean, I think we don't give these kids enough credit, or their families, quite frankly. They're looking at a lot of these things. They're looking at patterns, player development, academics, so every kid's a little bit different, but I don't think the outcome of one game changes too many minds. Now, really for a younger kid, though, if you're a 9th or 10th grader out there and you watch this game and maybe you go in an LSU fan and you don't know much about Auburn and, boy, you just fall in love with Auburn that day and you become a big-time recruit, and maybe that opens your eyes to a program. But in terms of being the slam dunk difference, hardly ever, I would think. I've never heard anybody say, well, rarely. I mean, we're going back 20 years of me doing this. You don't hear very often somebody say, well, if they won that game, that's why I'm going there.
Do you remember a player from Palatka, Florida named Clayton Buford? Keith,
I don't, and I don't, and I should.
That was probably before your time. It's 1970s.
Well, I should, because, Palatka obviously isn't too far from where I grew up. Palatka's the town, if you don't know that, you smell it about 10 miles out.
He was a big-time recruit who committed to Auburn and signed with Auburn in Doug Barfield's time. And I guess it was his freshman year. I was talking to him at Sewell Hall, which used to be the athletic dorm. And I said, you had all these offers. Why Auburn? And he said, well, I'm going to tell you why. He said, I came to Auburn when they played Richmond and they won. I want to say the score was 55-19. That could be wrong. 55-19. And he said, the Friday night before that, my high school team won 55-19, and I just knew then that somebody was trying to tell me something.
Well, wasn't that the era of astrology, numerology, all that stuff?
You get a big time recruit because your score is the same.
No, you really look, and you really don't know. I mean, you're trying to do all the right things, and then you never know, though. Maybe somebody else felt good about getting him. You know what I mean? Wait a second, we didn't get this guy because of what? You know what I mean? So it's just recruiting. I mean, look, the bottom line is, guys, I'm 46, Brandon, you're younger than me. Phillip, you're a little older than me. We at times in our lives, we can't make decisions, okay? And we've sort of been through life a little bit, you know what I mean?
Yep,
So being a teenager, having everybody telling you're great, having people like me blowing up your phone all the time.
I would not have, I can tell you
I
that.
wouldn't. Well, let me tell you something. If you've ever seen the movie Johnny Be Good, that's who I would have been. Okay? I would have been in trouble. I would have been, dating 15 people at once. I mean, I can't barely handle any kind of good run right now, okay, in my mid-40s. So I get it. It's tough on these kids. But, if you're Auburn this weekend, you're just trying to put on a good show. Make sure they get the proper amount of one-on-one time with the coaches before the game Friday. Friday's difficult, obviously. And then, Sunday morning. Now, the good thing is, being an afternoon game, it'll be over early evening. That'll allow them to spend more time with the guys. What's underrated, a couple of things, guys, and I know I'm going on and on, but one, the valuable time a recruit can spend with the current players. Do I believe what these guys are telling me about the team? And if so, do I feel comfortable around these guys? Can I be teammates with these guys? And then also, nobody talks about it, and I bring it up a lot. Christy Malzahn is incredible, according to multiple parents that I've talked to. Incredible, okay? And, I've seen personal touch with her just the one day I was over there and a hospice patient came. And the lady has since unfortunately passed away. And I saw Christy just take this one-on-one time and really make this person feel special. And they say that's what she does with mom and dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt and uncle, and the kid and everybody. And, I don't think, you just don't think of the coaches' wives of playing these integral roles. But when you sell family, and that's what Auburn recruiting really is about more than any other thing. Now they win, yes, and they develop guys and put guys in the pros, but they sell the family aspect.
No
well,
question.
You can tell, you can talk about it, but can you show it? And they do a good job showing it, I think.
Gus has said that she's the best recruiter on the staff, even though she's not on staff. So
yeah, she's good.
I believe that thoroughly.
She takes it personal too.
Yeah.
Last summer I asked her about when they were recruiting Russell Wilson when he was transferring from North Carolina State. And they thought they were going to get him. And she was talking about all she tried to do and cooking for him and all this stuff, and she was still bitter.
Yeah.
Those coaches remember the recruiting losses more than they remember the recruiting wins sometimes, just like with the games. I mean, they lose sleep over games they lost 20 years ago. Same thing with recruits. But boy, I tell you, we'll have to have a show just on great recruiting stories. And Philip, I know you write some of that stuff every year close to signing day, but what you told about the young man from Palatka, I mean, there's so many wild stories like that. It's amazing. But again, you just do what you can do. Put on a good show. Try to make a kid feel at home, and feel that he can fit into the program off the field and on the field, and then academically. There's no magic formula here. It's just, it's a lot of the same stuff everybody's trying to do. It's just who does it better. And then, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just to say Russell Wilson. Speaking of him, he's a guy that they thought that they could have went from an 8-win season to double digits or maybe more.
No question.
And that's how big he was for them in that recruiting cycle. So you just never know. I wanted to hit on quickly. It's also a big weekend for basketball recruiting, and there could be some big news coming out this weekend as well. 3 recruits are visiting officially, 2 4-star guys, Jalen Williams, Ishmael Mossad, and point guard Tyrell Jones. They will be visiting this weekend. Williams and Ishmael it's Auburn's near or at the top. Obviously Georgia's kind of involved with both of them, but Auburn's feeling pretty good about 2 of these 3 kids right now. Tyrell Jones is a kid that it doesn't necessarily have the high rankings, but did an incredible job on the AAU circuit recently and has really caught the eyes of a lot of teams. And he's visiting this weekend. I would not be surprised if Auburn gets a commitment or 2 this weekend out of basketball. And our Evan Daniels said it, but this basketball recruiting class for 2019, there hasn't been a lot of talk about it, but with these official recruits and some others down the line, they could potentially have a top 5 or top 10 recruiting class, which is saying something considering Bruce Pearl, who's done a lot of firsts at Auburn already, signed the first 5-star recruit in Auburn history and then signed the second one. And now he might have a top 5 recruiting class on his hands if everything goes right, of course. That's quite the feat.
And that's really amazing considering, I think, this just the things that were going on a year or so ago. I mean, but he's good. And I'll tell you this, basketball is at a place in terms of enthusiasm at Auburn. I've been around here a long time, and even when in the Sonny's days when they were going to 5 straight NCAA tournaments and an Elite Eight and 2 Sweet 16s, or the year Cliff won the SEC championship, I've never seen
Cliff Dwellers.
Right, but I still never see as much enthusiasm widespread for basketball as there is now. It's amazing.
This upcoming season, as we all know, could be very special.
It really could.
All the pieces. They've got all the pieces.
It really could.
It's going to be so much fun.
I talked to Sonny Smith at Hal Baird's, the thing honoring Hal Baird Saturday morning. I asked him, I said, is this the most talented basketball team Auburn's ever had? Especially considering that, he had first round draft choices in Charles Barkley, Chris Morris, and Chuck Person. And, he said, I don't know that they got guys that are better than those 3 guys. He said, but they've got more than any team I've ever been aware of here, as far as just numbers and talent combined.
And the secret to mixing that drink, as always, and we always find it out, like after the first game or two, is Jared Harper.
No question.
Kid's incredible.
No question.
Severely underrated.
It's going to be a challenge for Bruce to just to get it organized, and because you got a lot of guys that think they're supposed to be playing.
Well, he seems to always figure it out. I always think back to his Tennessee teams and the rotations they used. He wasn't afraid to pull a guy, rotate him in, give him a breather, and put him back out there, even when they were performing very well. And Tennessee seemingly didn't miss a step when they were at their high points at that point. And the reason for that was because they leaned a lot on hot shooters, getting the open shots, and Auburn's got that with Bryce Brown, obviously, and Jared Harper to a certain extent. So I think with the big men they've got right now, suddenly a team that was kind of thin last year in the front court, especially when Macklemore went down, they are extremely deep in the front court and could rotate. I mean, I love Chumu Okeke. Obviously, Austin Wiley, I think, is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be the NBA. Anthony McLemore's back. They have got some really, really good options in that front court, and they can mix and match between the 4 and the 5. Those guys don't have to play the 5 or the 4. They could play both. They can move them around.
To have a 6'11" guy, you could just go down there and throw it inside too. That's something really not many people have anymore, and Auburn hasn't had in a long time.
Yeah, and Bruce Pearl has even mentioned before, hey, I'm a guy that, I've had big players before, and I've never utilized them quite well. And I remember Austin Wiley's first game, he fed him the ball 3 straight times just to kind of prove a point. And he even said after the game, he goes, everybody critiques me about this, but I'm showing you I'm going to get the big man involved this year. I promise you. But he's got a load of talent this year, and it's going to be interesting. But I know we're talking a lot about football, but man, the SEC is going to be tough this year.
Yep, it is. Should be fun.
Should be fun to watch. Guys, we'll close real quick here with more thoughts on LSU. I would think, based off of the way just the way we're all conversing here, and we won't give official predictions. We'll say that for our fearless forecasters, but I would think that everybody's maybe kind of on board here if they're expecting an Auburn victory against LSU inside Jordan-Hare Stadium.
I think the point spread's pretty close.
I do too.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. I'm thinking 10, 12 points in that range. But again, that you can dominate a team, and if you're not doing great in the red zone, you make it a lot closer than it should be too. So that's another thing we're going to be watching closely. Okay,
and I'll throw this out there hypothetically. I'll just be Mr. Negative. What happens if they lose? The fans will freak out anyway.
Oh.
It's not the end of the world, as Gus Malzahn would say, right?
No, but they'll think it is. I think that. Well, here's the thing. I think LSU can lose. I think if LSU comes here and plays a good game and it's up and it goes down the wire and they lose, they'll be fine. They're on the road. They're not the ones that's expected to win. For Auburn to lose at home to anybody with what they got facing them on the road,
yes,
is going to really be a setback if that were to happen.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, home game with a lot of tough games coming up. it would be extremely hard to overcome. It's going to be a hard season, even if they win this game by 40 points. I mean,
But your goal right now is to get to Georgia with a chance to win it.
Yes.
That's the goal if you're Auburn. And it would be if that didn't happen, that would be a big disappointment. It was one thing to come back from LSU last year when, one, it was later in the season, and two, you had those big games at home. And,
exactly.
I mean, it's, winning at Missouri and winning at Texas A&M, particularly last year, and those guys winning at Arkansas, that's not the same as Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi State on the road.
Yeah, exactly right.
And Ole Miss. Even though I don't think Ole Miss can stop anybody enough to win a big game,
but goodness, if you're on the road against Ole Miss, you turn the ball over 3 times.
Yeah, that's right. You get outscored.
That could kill you.
You get outscored. That's exactly right.
So it's very interesting season on tap. I'm with you guys. They've got to win their home games to have a shot at winning an SEC title this year, because it's all going to come down. Even if they win their close games at home and all that, and everybody's making a big deal about that, it's still going to come down to Georgia. It's still going to come down to Alabama, because Georgia's going to roll through that SEC East. At least they should. And then, of course, Alabama, they might have the best offense they've had in the Nick Saban era, and that includes that 2014 team when Lane Kiffin was, predicting touchdowns before they happened. Their offense, if you guys have watched it, I know it's a small sample size and they haven't played the best of teams, but the execution's there, the talent's obviously there. I love the play calling. Bama is for real deserving of the number 1 ranking. The SEC West, man, it's every year.
Oh, and it's this year. I think it's even better than people expected, or it looks
A&M.
like. Again, it's early. A&M looked really good in that game. I'm not gonna put lift up A&M too high just yet, but because to me, if you're Dabo Swinney, you just gave up 450 yards passing, you got to be worried about that. That's
very worried.
That's a lot.
But that goes back, and you know it more than anybody, Philip. Jimbo Fisher is the quarterback whisperer.
Oh, no question. No question. And he definitely is. And but I was impressed. I watched a little bit of their first game against Northwestern State, and I didn't really pay that much attention to anything. But I was impressed not just with the obvious difference in Kellen Mond from last year to this year. I mean, you just can't argue that. I mean, but just the way they played the game, just the way they played the game. They got behind. They still believed they had a chance. They kept playing, and I watched that replay of the fumble over the pylon a bunch of times. I'm not convinced it was not a fumble. It was obviously a fumble. I'm not convinced that it was a bad call, because it looked to me like maybe it went right over the top of the pylon.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
one day soon, I would think they're going to put a chip in the football with GPS to figure that all out. They've got to do it.
But
because those moments are way too big.
But then somebody will hack into it, and you'll make somebody fumble on every play.
I'll say
it's an electrical shock.
I'm not sure there's a fan base more hungry for a winner than A&M. I'll tell you.
Listen, and you better watch out too. With everything they got, it's amazing they've had such a hard time getting it right, because they've got every single thing it takes: money, recruiting base, everything, commitment. You name it, they got it.
I'll say this. Some people were criticizing A&M going to the SEC, and it was a big loss and all this. It was a bad decision by A&M. Man, did it prove to be a huge win for A&M, because look at Texas right now. And A&M financially is doing better than Texas, which for the longest time was the biggest athletics department in the country.
Hey, you look at, I think all 4 of the teams that have joined the SEC since 1992 would say that it's
certainly.
It's been a boon for them. And, but Texas A&M was the one that was in a conference that considered itself to be, the same. Well, so was Arkansas, I guess, at the time, but I don't think anybody at Texas A&M be wanting to go back.
No. I mean, listen, South Carolina came in when it was just floating out there. Arkansas came in when they made the preemptive strike to leave the Big Eight, or the SWC, I should say. And if they did not leave when they did, Arkansas would probably be in Conference USA right now.
Yeah.
And they made that big leap. They were the biggest winner in 92. And then, of course, A&M and Mizzou. Mizzou, I think, is the biggest winner in that, but A&M has certainly taken advantage of it. It's amazing. We all knew it was a rich program. It's amazing how much of a jump they've made over the last 4 years financially.
Yep. And,
just incredible.
Like I said, everybody better watch out for them. I think they are the team that has the best chance to break through against those 6 teams that have won all the championships for more than 50 years. I used to think it was South Carolina, but I think their time kind of came and went.
Yeah, it was Spurrier.
And I think Texas A&M is the one with the best chance to do that.
I certainly agree with that. They've got everything in place, and I think they finally have the coach in place to do it too.
And they've done it in just about every other sport.
Exactly. Even in basketball.
Yep.
They've been doing it. All right, gentlemen.
All right,
guys.
Thank
you for joining me. It's been fun. This has been the Auburn Undercover Roundtable. Make sure to visit auburnundercover.com for full coverage. Make sure and go read Phillip Marshall's extensive piece on Boobie Whitlow, his family, his upbringing, and his rise to Auburn. A good read going into this LSU game, as Boobie Whitlow figures to be a big part of Auburn's plans going into that game. Thanks for joining us. Big recruiting weekend, too. It's a really, really big weekend on the Plains. Make sure and follow us at auburnundercover.com.